Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a look at a whole stack of sources. Some are field observations, really specific stuff from local real estate, and others are these highly structured analyses of bigger market shifts. And what we're trying to do here is distill what's really going on, because it seems like the mission today is to track not a crash, but something else, a fundamental shift in the atmosphere. Okay, let's unpack this. We usually focus on the big numbers, right? Price drops, GDP, major bankruptcies. But the source material we're digging into today suggests something much, much subtler is happening. I mean, prices haven't really collapsed, liquidity is still there, but there's this persistent feeling that, and this is a quote, something feels off.
And that's really the starting point for you, isn't it? That feeling. What we're observing isn't a change in the market's results. Those are always lagging indicators anyway. It's a change in the, let's call it the atmosphere of judgment. The old signals of success, they're suddenly creating this deep sense of unease. And the sources are pretty clear. This isn't just, the early stage of a recession. It's a structural shift.
A structural shift.
The core thesis, really, is that the market's priority has changed. It's now selecting for judgment durability, not just growth. The whole system is deciding who survives based on their internal structure, not just how fast they're doing.
Yeah, thesis it's a big one. But I'm trying to see how that actually shows up on the ground. Because when you look at the field level signals, you have these companies that are, by all accounts, winning, growing fast.
Dominating their sectors.
Exactly. And yet the material describes them as feeling strangely fragile. And there's this silent withdrawal from those big, flashy growth stories. So why does success suddenly feel like exposure? The sources say these high rotation, high inventory models, the ones built for pure speed, they're becoming destabilized. And not because funding is gone, but because of the uncertainty of the exit.
Exactly. And to understand that, we have to look past the surface level, what the sources call L1 phenomena, visible numbers.
Right.
We need to look at the eye layer, the internal attitude. That feeling of fragility you're talking about, it's rooted in a shift inside financial institutions. They're not pulling funds yet, not on a massive scale.
But their attitude is changing.
Their attitude has changed profoundly. They're looking at the process, the history behind the numbers, not just the spreadsheet. And this is where it gets really interesting because the whole selection point has moved. It's no longer just about price fluctuations or demand collapsing. That's results-based selection.
Okay.
Now, the system is moving to what the analysis calls process-based selection.
So if the process is what's being tested now, what kind of process fails first?
Well, it's the ones that defer judgment.
Yeah.
The ones clinging to what worked yesterday. Or, and this is a key concept in the sources, those suffering from a kind of organizational exhaustion. They call it the wear and tear on their freedom to decide.
The wear and tear on their freedom to decide.
Wow. The first ones being eliminated are the ones who've lost that internal ability to just stop or pivot.
So the risk isn't really about losing capital anymore. It's about losing your judgment motion. It sounds like the moment your ability to choose is compromised, even with a healthy balance sheet, the market just quietly starts to select you out.
That is the absolute critical insight here. And if you scale that up, you see the entire market operating system, the OS, is getting an update. We're moving from optimizing for speed to optimizing for buffer capacity.
That's a huge reversal. I mean, for decades, the rule has been if you're not growing, you're dying. Speed was everything.
And that was the old OS, perfectly defined. The old OS was all about optimizing the growth rate. Rotation was justice. Expansion was just good. The system was like a drag race on a straight, predictable track.
And the new OS?
The new OS optimizes for judgment durability. In this new world, the ability to stop is actually an asset.
Yeah.
Retaining your options, your margin for correction, that's the definition of good now.
So it's less like a drag race and more like...
It's like off-roading. Speed is useless if you can't stop before you go over a cliff or correct your steering on bumpy terrain. Survival now depends on having a correctable strategy, not just a correct strategy.
Which puts all those loud, successful companies in a really weird spot. They're almost certainly built for the old track.
Precisely. The sources say the exact same action that brought success yesterday can lead to total failure tomorrow. Risk is now measured by the disappearance of the margin for judgment. If you have zero room for error, you are the most exposed person in the room. I don't care what your valuation is.
Okay, but If the system is built to avoid those big headline-grabbing crises, and it seems to be, what does this all actually look like? It's not a crash, is it?
No, and that is the core point of this whole moment. You're not going to see chain collapses and huge bankruptcies on the news every night. The safeguards are there to prevent that kind of panic.
So instead we see
We see evaporation.
evaporate.
Yeah. It's a rise in scattered, non-public disappearances, silent withdrawals, quiet reorganizations, companies getting absorbed. It's not dramatic news. The market doesn't pop. The entities inside it just sort of thin out.
So the most dangerous situations are being handled behind the scenes. The failure becomes invisible.
The visibility of it is dispersed, yes.
Yeah, it makes the silence feel incredibly dangerous. It's not the silence of safety. It's the silence of risk being managed out of sight, which hides all this attrition. And this connects to a really powerful point in the sources about regional tendencies.
It does. They link this directly to a long-term pattern in certain local markets, describing a place that is, and I'm quoting, not collapsing, but slowly thinning, getting quietly poor.
Wow.
Instead of one big crisis that forces a reset, all the adjustments are just pushed down onto individual companies, individual households. It quietly erodes the buffer, what they call the life membrane, instead of triggering some obvious visible crisis.
So the system avoids a heart attack, but the capillaries are all slowly closing off. The pain is distributed, which makes it so much harder to see the common threat.
That's a perfect analogy. And when you project this up to the institutional level, the L3 or the financial OS, it reveals the system's new purpose. The financial OS isn't stopping capital, it's controlling the conditions for judgment.
What do you mean by that?
Funding won't just vanish, but the conditions attached to it will suddenly change. That old reliance on, well, it passed before, so it'll pass again, that's gone. It loses all meaning. The system is evolving to assess your attitude, your ability to correct your internal structure, not just your numbers.
The system is moving to, as the sources say, not kill, but immobilize.
Exactly.
It doesn't bankrupt you, it just traps you. It restricts your ability to make the very moves you need to survive, leaving you frozen. So if you're an individual or an organization trying to navigate this, what does this actually mean for your decisions? The L0 thesis here is pretty stark. The main risk isn't financial loss anymore. It's the inability to choose. Your single greatest asset right now is your remaining judgment margin, your time, your buffer, your ability to correct course.
And this is why the sources are so focused on what not to do is more important than what to do. The structure rewards those who can keep their buffer, who can maintain reversibility, who can justify the decision to just not move.
Which gives us some really clear reverse guidelines for maintaining that durability. The first one is, do not get fixated on your past successes.
Absolutely. Because those successes were for the old OS. They could be your biggest liability now.
The high flyer of yesterday is the structural liability of today.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, don't judge safety by sales or scale. Size could just mean you're more exposed with less room to maneuver quietly.
Right.
Third, and this is the hard one, do not mistake the current quietness for safety. The quiet, as we've said, is probably a sign of that evaporation happening just out of sight. And finally, the most important one, do not outsource your judgment to the market mood. If everyone is doing something, that's the signal to question it. The system is rewarding what the sources call explainable doubt.
Yes. The capacity to stand apart from the momentum. Because the survival condition is no longer about how bold your investment is. It's about whether you can ask yourself, truly ask, when can I pull back and when can I stop? And, crucially, have you actually built the structure that lets you do that without causing a total collapse?
We've really seen that the whole game is shifting. It's away from judging capital and size and towards judging the structure that allows you to keep making corrections. The strongest players are the ones who can build trust without screaming about growth, the ones who can justify standing still.
And that leads us to the final unavoidable question here. If the public numbers are misleading and the big success stories are suspect, and the quiet is actually the most dangerous sign, where do you place your own judgment? What internal compass can you possibly trust when all the external signals are inverted?
Yeah, the takeaway here isn't a prescription, is it? It's more of a preparation of attitude.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, it's about learning the difference between delayed information like bankruptcy news, which is old news by the time you hear it, and the reversal signal, that sudden shift in attitude, that silence from the high flyers.
So the most vital question left for you isn't whether your strategy is built to keep succeeding. It's whether your design is built to keep being correctable. Can you afford to hold on to that explainable doubt, that capacity to pause, even when everyone else is hitting the accelerator?
That's something for you to mull over as you navigate this phase of quiet reselection. Keep that judgment durability intact.